Hey, what's up? I'm going to show you how to build a DIY version of the Output platform, which is a very cool studio desk made by Output. I'm on their website here, so this is how it looks. It's a very well designed, very cool studio desk. It has a bunch of very cool features like 3 height units of rack space times 3 in this shelf, and a keyboard tray and very good cable management. Normally it's $750 including the keyboard tray without shipping. But there's a bunch of very good DIY resources out there that show how you can build the thing yourself, and that's what I did. So the thing that I used was a SketchUp model that I opened here by Rui A. So thank you very much, Rui, for making this publicly available. He says he'd give it about 95% accuracy to the original, and I kind of checked and I would say it's probably 100% accurate. I didn't see anything that didn't fit. So the only problem with the Output platform in general is that Output is an American company, and so all of the measurements are in imperial dimensions. So I am living in Europe, and all of the plywood sheets, which this table is made out of, that I can buy here are different sizes and thicknesses. So what I did was I took this SketchUp model and just modified it so that it fits for the wood that I can buy where I live. So to summarize, if you live in Europe, feel free to use my modified model. I'm gonna link it in the video description. Okay, so I opened both the SketchUp models here. This is the original and this is mine. So if I check the thickness of the plates here real quick, this is 1.905 in the original and mine has a thickness of 1.8 centimeters. Another thing that I changed was the tabletop is 152.4 centimeters wide in the original, and mine is a flat 150 centimeters. And of course the question now is, does the rack gear still fit in this shelf? And it does. I measured it and it still fits with my rack ears that I use. So I don't think they are any special snow limber ones or whatever. I think the original table just has some extra space or something. But yeah, whatever. You can see it in the later video where I assemble everything. The 19-inch rack gear is still fitting in it. And yeah, one other thing that I changed was the tabletop. So the original has only one solid sheet of plywood, and then there's some wood around the corners here. And I just wanted to do this 2 solid sheets so that everything is a bit more rugged and sturdy. But that makes the whole thing a lot more heavy, obviously, so I made the legs a bit thicker to accommodate for that. So mine are 10 centimeters wide and the originals are just 5.08. So I thought that was a bit small, and I just, to be safe, made that a bit thicker. One thing I changed too is the height of the shelf. So the side panel here is higher on my version, so it fits 4 height units of rack gear, not only 3. Right, and here you can see there is this rabbit, I think it's called, where the top shelf panel goes into the side panel here. And because that's kind of annoying to cut if you build it yourself, I just didn't do it at all. So I'm just gonna screw 3 screws like here into the side panel to fix the top shelf, and that's totally enough. I don't really see the point of doing that. Like cutting into the side panel here at the top. And yeah, but that's all the changes that I made, so let's move on. This is my home studio, like the before shot. This is my table that I have right now, and it's just getting quite too small. And I have a bunch of rack gear that I currently store on this couch table, and that's just very ugly, and there's a lot of cables just lying around. That has to change. So onto the building itself. So the first thing that I did was to draw all of the individual pieces of the table onto a piece of paper in a smaller dimension, obviously, and the same with the plywood sheets. And then I tried to fit as many pieces as possible in as little wood as possible. And yeah, so then I knew how much wood I needed, I ordered it, and then I could start to build. I am very fortunate to be building in a workshop of a professional carpenter, a friend of mine. And that's where we are here. You can see the plywood sheets here, and I am now drawing all of the measurements that I did on paper earlier onto the sheets themselves. And yeah, so obviously not everybody has access to a professional workshop with all of these tools and machines, but that's not really a problem. All you really need is a circular saw that can make straight cuts, and basic tools like a belt grinder and sanding paper, screwdriver, whatever, like the basics. Yeah, just having these machines makes everything a bit faster and easier. So yeah, these are the plates. You can see one rough edge here, so it's not a bad idea to order the plates a bit bigger so you can cut that away, because just from handling the plates and shipping or whatever, it can kind of make ugly edges. But yeah, if you don't care about that, then that's not necessary. So here is a example of a saw that you could use if you don't have this big table saw. It's just a circular saw with a guide that can make straight cuts. So I could have just cut all of the pieces with that saw, but yeah, just this big table saw here makes it a lot easier, and yeah, so I use that. Yeah, I'm just dragging these pieces across like that, and yeah, we get very nice cuts. So this is the plate for the legs. I am gluing together 2 plates to make the legs. The legs and the tabletop are the only 2 pieces that are 2 sheets of plywood. The rest is just single sheets. So yeah, I'm just putting on a thin layer of wood glue and yeah, getting that into every corner. And yeah, just that, on one side, and then I'm putting the second sheet on top and clamping everything together very tightly with a lot of clamps to get just a very nice result, as you can see here. So now we can start to draw the more detailed angles and shapes onto the now cut out pieces of wood. And here you can see me dialing in the angle that I need for the legs on the table saw. That's also very cool about this saw, that you can do that. And you can see me here cutting out the legs. The legs are probably one of the more annoying cuts that you have to do, because there's like 2 different angles, and if you don't get it right, your table's gonna wobble around later. So yeah, probably a good idea not to mess that up. And yeah, so after we're done with that, we've got all of our pieces cut out. So this is the final tabletop, and we've got like a strip for the keyboard tray, the keyboard side panels, then we've got the dividers. This is the modesty panel, This is the keyboard tray itself, the side panels, this is only one, but we've got two obviously, and this is the shelf. So we're done with this part, moving on to more detailed work. So now I'm doing the cutouts for the cable management. And I know in the original these are squares or rectangles, but I am just doing these round cutouts here because they're a lot easier to do, and I don't really care that, yeah, I know it doesn't really fit with the design, but yeah, I'm going for convenience here. This is just a lot faster and easier. The other spot where I did circular cutouts is the keyboard panel that you can see here. So I'm doing round edges so that when I bash my knees against them, it's not gonna hurt that much. Yeah, so I'm just connecting the two cutouts with the circular saw and then finishing the cutout left and right. And then for these two other edges, I'm using this different saw and just freehanding it like that to get a round corner. Nice, so we're done with that part. Next up is sanding. And sanding I'm doing with this very cool, huge machine. You can move this tabletop piece freely around, like back and forth. And yeah, here there's the side panel on top right now, and you can just do the whole thing in just a matter of seconds. And yeah, I'm just turning it around, doing the other side, and I'm doing that for all of the pieces obviously, so I'm getting a very nice and smooth surface. I did this once with a little bit rougher belt, and then I'm changing it out and doing it again with a little bit of a finer grain. So next part of sanding is moving on to this different machine, this other belt grinder that's oscillating up and down. And I am dragging all of the sides of the pieces across it, as you can see here. Obviously this is again a very special machine that not a lot of people have access to, but it's totally optional. Like you can just do that by hand or with a normal belt grinder that's like operated by your hands. But yeah, because I have the option to use this thing, I'm happy to use it. So it's just very fast. And now I am moving on to sanding by hand, but I'm just doing the very corners, and I'm just going over them like 2 or 3 times to get rid of splinters and just to smooth it out a bit, but not too much, because I kind of want them to be still 90 degrees and it's just not the design of the table to have very round corners. So yeah, I'm going over all of the pieces just lightly. And now I am doing a short test assembly to see if everything lines up, and it did, so we can move on to the next part, which is oiling. That's what you can see here. So I'm doing the finish with a hard wax oil, and I am just applying it in a very thin layer on all of the pieces, and then I'm wiping it off again after a short duration, like I think up to 5 minutes, with something like a kitchen towel or something similar. And yeah, this gives it a nice looking oiled finish with like some sort of a 3D effect a little bit. But yeah, you can see in the finished table how that turned out. And I am then just letting it dry overnight, and on the next day applying a second coating, and then we're pretty much done. The last part is to cut off pieces of aluminum pipe for the cable canal in the back of the table That's what I'm doing here. It's like 1 centimeter in diameter aluminum pipe, and I am cutting 10 centimeters a piece off of it. And I need 8 pieces of that. Now I'm just smoothing out the corners a bit, and then we are done and we can get to assembling the thing. So we're back in my room. I previously got rid of all of the shit that was here before, and I put the legs already assembled on the floor. And the first thing that I'm gonna do is nail in these pads that prevent scratching. So 1 big one into the leg, into the center of the leg here. And then 2 smaller ones for the side panel legs. So just on either side, nailing it in like that. And the same thing for the other leg, obviously. And then we are done with that part. Next up is screwing in the modesty panel. So it's a good thing if you have a second person to help you out there, so that one can hold the leg and the other person can screw in the thing. And now the basic structure is standing, and we can put the tabletop on top of it. And I am first putting it on there upside down because I want to screw in the cable canal now. And to do that, I have these 13 centimeter long screws that I'm drilling in here now, that, as you can see, and then covering them up are the aluminum pipes that you can see lying there in the background. So yeah, I'm just screwing it in, turning it around, putting the aluminum pipes over the screws, then turning that whole thing around again, and then drilling in these screws. And I did some pre-drilling into the tabletop, so I know exactly where to drill. And yeah, because they should be straight and not like crooked looking or anything. Yeah, so pretty straightforward, just screwing that tight. And when we're done, we can flip the tabletop around and see if everything is aligned properly. And it is, so I am screwing in the tabletop. I did some pre-drilling here, so that's very important, because otherwise your tabletop could possibly split where you drill in the screws, and you obviously don't want that. And also with all of the other parts, it's always good to pre-drill. Next up, I am drilling I'm fastening the side panels for the keyboards, and yeah, also very straightforward, just 2 screws and tighten that. Next up is the shelf. So as I said in the beginning, 3 screws on the side panel, into the side panel, fasten that, and on the other side, and then we are done with the shelf as well. So now I just to test out if the rack gear will fit, I, without screwing it in at first, just set everything up with the rack gear that I have, and it totally fits. So then I started to fasten the rack ears, as you can see now. I am using some self-drilling screws here, so I don't have to pre-drill, and yeah, they're very short because the wood is only 1.8 centimeters thick, and you don't want to screw through the whole thing, obviously. So I am screwing it in like 2/3 of the way and then tightening the last bit with a hand screwdriver. And yeah, that looks tight, and that side is done. So I'm doing the second side. Always checking that I'm screwing in everything correctly and not in any way misaligned or anything. So same thing here. The last bit I'm doing by hand the first bit with the screwdriver. Right, so after that I'm doing all of the other rack ears too, but that's the same thing for everyone, for every one of them. So yeah, pretty easy. The hard part is behind us, and that is how the whole thing looks without anything in it. So we are done. We are pretty much done. This is the final result with everything set up and finished. So I'm very happy with how it turned out. It's pretty much perfect. There's just a couple of things that I want to mention. So you probably noticed that I didn't use any slides on the side of the keyboard tray. That's because I just used wooden strips on either side, and that has the advantage that it stays put wherever I pull it to and doesn't move around that much. One other thing is that I didn't fix the dividers, like they're pretty much loosely in there, but they are being held in place by the rack gear and the top shelf, so I didn't see any need to do anything. Other than that, it's pretty much like the original table. And yeah, that's it. I wish you happy building and see you soon.